Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and get started if everyone could get settled. Oh, okay. Going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome. It's been a very eventful 2 days and a half, very eventful day today. We had one of the best, it keeps getting better every year, one of the best showcases that we've ever had. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you. So I'm Iris Wagstaff. Again, I'm proud and honored to serve as PI or Principal Investigator on this grant that is supported by the National Science Foundation to provide this showcase to you all. It's been an honor and thrill to work alongside Neela White as well and our amazing team. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first amazing speaker of the day, which is Dr. Shirley Malcolm. She is a Senior Advisor and Director of our Sea Change initiative at AAAS, and she is going to provide some remarks. And then after that, she is going to also serve as moderator and introduce our next speaker, who is coming up for a fireside chat. Dr. Shirley Malcolm.
Good afternoon. You guys can do better than that. Good afternoon. Terrific. As Iris said, I'm Shirley Malcolm, and I have been around for a long time. One of the nice things about being around for a long time is that you are able to watch over time as the program becomes more and more mature and the things that you develop become more and more amazing. I want to talk for just a minute about HBCUs and the significance of HBCUs, because I think that maybe you even don't realize this kind of special places where you find yourself. How many of you have ever heard of a person by the name of Patricia Bath? Anybody ever heard of Patricia Bath? Okay. Patricia Bath is was a very interesting woman. She's born around the time my sister is born. And so this is basically in November, it'll be 100 years since Patricia Bath was born. Patricia Bath finished Hunter. She lived in New York. She finished Hunter College, and then she went to medical school at Howard. And she got a residency at New York University in ophthalmology, and that was unusual at the time. You tend to find people in primary care, but ophthalmology, not so much. So Patricia Bath spent her residency going back and forth between Harlem Clinic and Columbia Hospital Eye Clinic. And one of the things that Patricia Bath noted was that her white patients at Columbia tended to have fairly mild symptoms that just needed mild treatment. But that her patients at Harlem were largely blind, that they had had their conditions for much longer periods of time. So what Patricia Bath actually decided was that people had not had the opportunity for preventive eye care. And she invented something called community ophthalmology, where there was much more regular testing so that you could see if people were going to have problems, or if they had problems, you could catch it early. But the other thing that is interesting is that over time, Patricia Bath also had a knowledge of lasers, and she ended up inventing an improved device for laser surgery to remove cataracts because it would make it easier to be able to serve larger numbers of people. Laser surgery on cataracts is also was a lot easier than what they used to do. People used to have to lie flat and not move for long periods of time and things like this. And now, I mean, people, like 3 days later, they're up and around. But the point, I think, to Patricia Bath's story, there's lots about Patricia Bath that I recommend to you. But the point about Patricia Bath's work and her invention is that people tend to innovate around their experience. They tend to innovate around what they see, the problems that they want to solve, the things that need to happen. And that's one of the reasons that I'm excited about this program, because as HBCUs, we're situated in communities with lots of needs. And even though we are in fact basing the kind of the focus around the Sustainable Development Goals, we need to address those goals within our communities as well as internationally, globally. So beginning to understand the opportunities that our institutions actually present to us as laboratories, as places to get ideas for our inventions and our innovations and our being able to solve the problems of our community. But one of the things that we have to remember, I think more than anything else, is that we have to have not only a kind of a welcoming environment in order to be able to do that, but we also have to have what actually a friend of mine once called porosity between the institution and the community. You've got to be able to be in the community to see what the needs of the community are. And you have to be able to let the needs of the community come back into the institution to inform the direction of innovation. HBCUs are also very special places because even though over time they are providing the baccalaureate degrees to a smaller percentage of students from our communities, a lot of this now being taken over by predominantly white institutions, community colleges, whatever. Even though that they remain major baccalaureate origins institutions, the places where people get bachelor's degrees who then go on and become researchers and get doctoral degrees. I mean, a lot of the institutions are represented in this room. In the life sciences, in the Jackson State actually ranks number 8 as a baccalaureate origin institution in the life sciences, and Tuskegee represents number 9. In the physical sciences, is Morehouse, FAMU, Xavier, Hampton Howard, Jackson State, Alabama A&M. It takes a long lineup of those institutions until you get to a predominant white institution. HBCUs still dominate as baccalaureate origins institutions. And a lot of the work that you have been doing here kind of begins to make you ready for this next step, to really take this next step toward innovation. And when you take that next step, you're going to meet our speaker or the work that our speaker has been involved in. I am really thrilled to be able to have a conversation and meet with Derek Brent. He is the Deputy Director of the Office of U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. I see I got all that out. and the Deputy Undersecretary for Intellectual Property. And I think that this, Undersecretary for Commerce, I think that this will be a fun discussion because I have decided that this kind of really interesting background of combining training and engineering on the one hand from The Ohio State University, you notice I got that right, with legal training, with a law degree from Northwestern. And to put these together, because I think that in our discussions, we've come to understand the extent to which, even though protection of intellectual property is something that we've had conversations about, there is a legal aspect that is associated with it. And so it is what it is. And it can drive us crazy from time to time. But it, in fact, does allow people who have ideas to protect those ideas. And so I am really thrilled to ask Derek Brent if he would join me here on the stage so that we can have a conversation about this really strange world he lives in. I think we're on. I don't think we have to turn ourselves on. I think we're on.
Hello?
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry to those of you who are over there. Maybe we'll move them midway through this conversation. I have just enjoyed myself talking with you. I mean, it has been an absolute pleasure. But one of the things that would be really, really useful, if you would share a little bit of your background beyond where you went to school. I mean, you grew up somewhere, okay? Beyond where you went to school, share a little bit of your background, because so that they can understand how you came to this space.
Sure. It's and I want to thank you very much. I'm honored to share the stage with Shirley. I want to call her Dr. Malcolm, but
no,
she
I
said
told him
no.
not to.
And like her, I'm the same way. Around the agency, I told people, people refer to me as Deputy Director or Mr. Brent, and I say, listen, just call me Derek, and within a few months, you're going to start calling me D. So please, we're all family here at the agency. So I grew up in western Pennsylvania, a little small town outside of Pittsburgh called Washington, Pennsylvania.
I know that.
Yeah.
I know that.
Did you? You know?
Yeah, well, I'm on the Heinz Endowments Board, so I spend a lot of time in Western Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
30.
I'm sorry.
No, it's
You can
funny
still be surprised.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it's funny because in law school I interviewed with a law firm, and they looked at my resume, and it didn't have my hometown, but it had Ohio State, General Motors in Michigan, and Northwestern in Chicago. And this particular law firm was in Columbus, Ohio, and they said, I'm sorry, we can't tell from here where your hometown is. And I said, Pittsburgh. And then the one guy actually turned out to be from the area, and he says, okay, no one is actually from Pittsburgh. So, I grew up in a small town outside of Pittsburgh called Washington. I was a music. I actually did a lot of things with music, but when I was in high school, one of the other things that I did was I wrote a computer program to balance chemical equations. And this was back ages ago in the ancient 80s. But it actually, all I had to do was put the elements in. It had the periodic chart as a data source, and it would balance the equation. So my science teacher, my chemistry teacher, Mr. Flynn, said, if you created it, you should get the benefit of using it. So for a whole quarter, he allowed me to actually use it on tests. And I got an A that quarter. When I went to college, I wanted to blend music, which was, I gotten a small bit of money from Ohio State for music, but I've been accepted into their music program. I was a trumpet player. I was able to play all the instruments with the exception of bassoon and oboe. And then I wrote music, so my major was going to be jazz composition. But I knew that, after 4 or 5 years of college, Quincy Jones wasn't going to be beating on my door to ask me to work with him. So I wanted something practical. So I took mechanical engineering. And I also knew that I had a passion for government and law. And so I said maybe mechanical engineering would be a good springboard for law. So I went into it. And I ended up giving back the music just because it wasn't practical. And I finished out in mechanical engineering. And I was lucky enough to get a job, a summer internship with General Motors that turned into a full-time job. I worked with them for 3 years. Ended up right off the bat managing subcontracted plants. So if you can imagine, basically at your age, walking into a plant full of people who are, including a plant manager who's probably 50 or 60 years old and has been there forever, and having to tell them what to do and being able to command some respect from them, that's where I was. It was baptism by fire. But I was able to do it. I developed some new warranty programs that yielded some good benefits. But after 3 years, within the 3 years, I decided that I wanted to move on to something else. And so I went back to law school, and I was accepted at Northwestern. So I love the city of Chicago, so I went out to Chicago for law school. Again, kind of had a path that I thought I was going to go on, and fate intervened. And during that time, I was introduced to intellectual property. That was the first time I was introduced to IP. Everybody saw my mechanical engineering background and my manufacturing.
And that's when you realized that you should probably have protected that program you wrote, right?
That's You know what? Speaking of that, as the first time with IP, a song that I wrote. My first introduction to IP was a song that I wrote when I was 17 years old. I got it copyrighted, and the way I got it copyrighted was I called the copyright office, and someone from the Library of Congress actually sat with me and helped me to fill out the form on the phone, because it was the old days. We didn't have the internet or anything like that.
That is cool.
Yeah. So, speeding it up, I've had a diverse career. I practiced in the private sector at law firms, and I practiced in intellectual property early in my career. I also worked at the Justice Department as a senior trial attorney in the Civil Rights Division, handling cases on behalf of the United States. I worked in the Senate as a chief counsel for Senator Boxer. Then I moved on and worked for a medical technology company in Southern California, handling intellectual property and other litigation issues. And then in the past 6 years, I was able to do some consulting, and that was a real interesting time because I was able to work with some startups. I was able to work with some charitable organizations that I helped them to get up and running. And then I got the call this year to ask to come back to serve at the PTO. It's an organization I've long admired, and the chance to serve with such a great agency and also to serve our country again, I jumped on it, and
That's cool.
And I'm happy to be
That's
here.
That's really great. But you really have had a very, very diverse kind of range of things, but kind of all in a way in this space.
Yeah. A lot of it in the legal space, and I'll tell a quick story if you don't mind. I was talking to a gentleman who was a CEO of a company, and he was giving me career advice. We were hanging out one time, and he said, "Derek, the one thing you can do, grab as many skills as you can before age 40, before age 50, somewhere in that range, but grab skills." And he said, if something isn't working out for you, if you feel like you've maxed out, he said, don't be afraid to move on. Try something new. Stretch yourself. And he said, because when you get to those later stages of your career, he said, the person that has the diverse experience is the person that is going to be the leader. It's the person who's going to be able to bring a lot to bear on more senior jobs. And he was right. At the time I was nervous because I had moved to a couple of law firms. I'd moved practice areas. I had done intellectual property. I was doing employment law at that time. But he was absolutely right.
Yep.
And the jobs that I've had, especially in the intellectual property area and talking with startups in the innovation space, well, they bring all of my skills to bear.
Yeah.
And, you know, I might sometimes find myself calling back. I might be writing something that is, you know, that has to be more lyrical. It has to really resonate. So I might call on my music experience, but I might also call on my experience from manufacturing. I might call on my experience, you know, from working even in employment law. So I think having a diverse set of skills is one of the greatest things you can have, and especially in the innovation space. Knowing how much you can, you know, getting those different experiences, because when you're at a startup, there's only 5, 6, 7 of you, sometimes 10, and you know what? And I see the fellow over here nodding. It's true. He knows it's true. You're whatever job you have, it's that job plus. That is what it is. And when you form your own company, you're going to be asked to do a lot of things outside of just your normal skill set. So you're going to grow and you're going to learn.
Yeah. AAAS was asked to be an inaugural member for the USPTO-led Council on Inclusive Innovation. Can you share a little bit about the council? Because essentially it sounds as though the USPTO is taking the same attitude, and that is that the more different kinds of groups and space and what have you can have in a space, the greater is the possibility of innovation.
That's absolutely right. That's and I mean, we're at a day and age where the ecosystem, the innovation ecosystem, has to grow. It can't stay stagnant, and it needs to be inclusive, because there's a lot of talent out there. There's more and better to do, as one of my coaches used to say. We'd win a game, and he would turn around and say, "There's more and better to do next time." The Council for Inclusive Innovation is a great initiative that has been taken very seriously. It is being led by both the Secretary of Commerce, so Gina Raimondo, and Kathy Vidal, who is the Undersecretary for Commerce for Intellectual Property and the Director of the USPTO. And the idea is that the council will develop new strategies for making the innovation ecosystem more inclusive. And so you have really a few points that you're really trying to hit with these strategies. You're trying to grow the ecosystem. You're trying to develop the journey through the system, and that includes with intellectual property. Intellectual property, and the reason the PTO was selected as one of the core parts of this initiative is because intellectual property is the foundation of the innovation system. Whether it's a patent, whether it's a trademark, and that's how you connect to your customers, or whether it's a copyright, the intellectual property is at that core. The initiative, though, and the final part of the initiative is building sustainable innovation. So, you know, we're looking forward to doing things. Already we've set up internships, and I believe that, and Joyce, you can correct me, my friend here from the USPTO is here. She can give me a nod or a shake. But the internship program, from the first time we sent out applications, I believe it filled up. The applications, and we extended it a little bit more, and it filled up again immediately. So we're developing internships, you know, in the innovation space to try and give folks experience. And then we're also doing other programs that we're doing to stand up women entrepreneurs and so forth. So it's a very serious initiative, and I look for a lot of things to come out of this initiative over the years.
You know, even though USPTO is this space essentially that operates this structure, this part of the ecosystem, there are lots of other agencies that are out there that are trying to fund and support innovation.
Yes.
The National Science Foundation just created a whole new directorate, and the NIH is looking to kind of like the biomedical, biotech, other kinds of spaces, and there's lots of opportunities that the agencies are seeing to support your work in the ecosystem. But you know, like in this particular case, the initiative for the HBCU Making Innovation showcase is being supported by the NSF. with the understanding that there's a lot of talent. In the same way that these institutions are kind of key in terms of producing researchers, so that there's a lot of innovators and inventors that are sitting inside of these spaces. And so, how do you think we can better support this kind of effort?
Sure, and I want to just one thing that came to mind as I left off. I really want to thank and congratulate and thank Dr. Parikh, who from AAAS, who is a member of the CI Squared initiative, and is giving valuable service there. Shirley, you raise a very good point, and it really comes down to collaboration. It runs into collaboration. So I'm gonna veer off a little and talk about HBCUs are so vital to their communities. You mentioned this in your remarks. They're so vital in their communities because they sit in this space where there are communities where there are unique problems to be addressed. There are unique opportunities to be addressed, and within those communities, we have to bring resources to bear. We have to think about innovation in a more holistic sense. We have to start with the core of intellectual property. Are you developing, patentable ideas? Are you developing, brands? But then we have to move from there, and we have to move up, and we have to figure out how to bring that to market, how to bring that to impact on the communities. And that is where we have a lot of agencies. So, for example, MBDA. Recently, we was sworn in the new head of MBDA. That's the Minority Business Development Agency. It's a part of the Department of Commerce. Their Undersecretary, Don Cravens, who, if you look him up, is a very, very impressive individual. And he has come in, and you have an agency, the MBDA, that is solely dedicated to helping efforts like what the HBCUs are trying to do. Okay. So now the next thing you have to have is, and you mentioned this in your remarks. So I feel like we're vibing here.
Of course we are.
Yeah, exactly. But you mentioned sort of that loop, that information. I call it the virtuous information loop. But it's a great way to put it, where the university is there and it's providing services. But you also have to have the community and the private parts of the community, and the community itself have to give back to the universities and understand that these universities need support. They need people to help for their efforts. And if you can create that loop, that cluster, that innovation hub, I'll tell you, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, it really is exciting. But one of the things that we know is that the institutions need the kind of infrastructure to support this. I mean, when I've been on the board at Morgan State for 23 years. I know, I'm a sucker for a sob story. But the point is that when I first came onto the board, we did not have a research VP. Mm-hmm. Okay? We did not have we didn't have a tech transfer structure. We didn't have a kind of a research infrastructure. And I think that this is probably the same with a lot of the institutions here, that in fact they don't necessarily have all of the infrastructure that they could use in order to really be able to move to that next step beyond protecting the property. Finding places that they can license, finding venture, finding whatever. What do we need to do within the space of HBCUs to try to help build out these other pieces?
Well, I think it's a great question. This is where you have to look at sources to sort of help build that infrastructure. And again, I'll go to I'll get a bit to my background. Just as I was graduating, of course, things happen when as I'm getting ready to leave a space. For example, my mom bought a house after I went to college. So, she went into this new house. One of the things that happened at Ohio State, just as I was leaving, is that Honda built a plant out in Marysville, Ohio, just outside of Columbus. Honda, as part of that project, built new labs at Ohio State for research. and to do a bunch more research and also to do some collaborations. That was great, and I wish, looking back, hindsight 2020, I'd been offered a chance to get my master's basically for free and stay on, and I wish I had done it for a year. I think it would have been valuable experience. It's not easy. It's not easy to build up a structure like that. There's not, not everyone is Honda, but you have to try to press you have to press the private sector, and anywhere I go, I myself, and I believe, and the director also, we call on the private sector always to try to help out universities and moreover to help out HBCUs and to help build up that structure, build these partnerships, because there's a wealth of talent that is not being utilized to its fullest potential. So you have to look at the private sector to try and build those relationships. But you also have a lot of places, the SBA, you have the MBDA, you have and I'm sorry, these are all acronyms, small business. I'm still behind on patent and trademark office acronyms, but over my time in DC, the 12 years before I came back recently, I did learn too many of them. Small Business Administration, Economic Development Administration, the Minority Business Development Administration. Make relationships. These folks, especially with the CHIPS Act now that is out, there's going to be money flowing to these innovation hubs. No reason that these innovation hubs shouldn't be around around HBCUs and to grow this out. I'm telling you, there's I feel excited because there's hard work to be done, but I'm excited always about good work.
It's interesting. I have a friend who's a serial entrepreneur, inventor, and he said that, building on this notion about you innovate in this space of your experience, he said that he only had people who were concerned about cost, who had basically students who had lived in poverty at some time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I hadn't really thought of coming from whatever background, being an asset to the way that you think and pose questions and look at innovation. But there it is.
Oh, it absolutely is. Just being at the table, whether sometimes you hear an idea that's going to land wrong, or whether you contribute an idea where someone hadn't thought about it.
Yeah.
The more you have at the table, the better the output.
Right. You can make a lot of difference with all these different perspectives coming at you. Absolutely. Okay, so who was your mentor? Who was the person that kind of supported your invasion into the innovation space?
Wow. Well, I start with early on. I'm old school. I'm an ancient guy with a pair of bad knees from playing too much basketball and many other sports. But so I'm old school, and I go back to George Washington Carver. I go back to Madam C.J. Walker. Who just kept coming up with ideas and turning them into businesses. Dr. Charles Drew. And Dr. Charles Drew was interesting because not only was he a physician and a scientist who developed revolutionary ways for blood transfusion, but then he had to turn around and turn into a social advocate because the transfusions were not being allowed between the races, and he had to turn around and say there was no scientific basis for this. He combined his heart with his head, and that always stuck with me. Dr. Marion Crook is someone who I've learned of, and the idea that you develop a technology of voice over internet protocol, basically, which is the basis for our teleconferencing. You develop an idea that's just a seed, and to watch how it is germinated today, that's it. That's one of the things you always have to think about. You might be working on something that you feel is about this big, but eventually it's going to grow. It's going to grow, and it might take over the world. So it is important when it's this big.
Okay.
So those are, and my mentor.
I love that.
Yeah, my mentor professionally is Judge Algernon Marbley. He's the Chief Judge of the Southern District of Ohio. I clerked for him after a couple years in practice. He's one of the best judges I've ever known. In my swearing-in remarks, and I've often said Thurgood Marshall would be proud of his legacy if he saw the work that Judge Marbley does. And I was his first clerk, And to this day, he still calls me or texts me every few weeks just to check on me. So it's a special relationship.
I like that. I like that because, quite frankly, it's very difficult to do this kind of work without having people that you can just talk to, be encouraged by. Um, I like that. Okay, so before we go to any Q&A from the audience, is there kind of like one parting shot of inspiration? I mean, you've been throwing them out here all this whole time, but one parting shot to the students about the work that they all have undertaken and their journey forward.
So one of the things when in my legal practice, I did litigation, and so oftentimes you're asked to give your arguments up front and then explain. So I'm going to tell you, I'm going to do that, but this applies. The notes under this apply generally. Persevere. Grab a diverse set of skills to increase your value, and pay it forward. Those are the three things. Persevere, because it's not easy. It's things in terms of jobs and chances today are better than they were when I was younger, but it's still a tough road. It's a tough road for anyone, and so you have to persevere. And I'm always reminded of my mom when I would get down, and she put that hand on my back, and she say, it's always darkest before the light. Hang in there. You don't know what's around the next corner, but stay in there, stay in the game, fight for your dream. Okay, stay in it. The second part of it was about diverse skills. Please take the opportunity. Always think what's next. I had the same gentleman that talked to me about grabbing diverse skills. He said to me, every couple years, ask yourself what's next, and if what you're doing is good, ask yourself how you can grow. And so that was an important thing. And then the final point is pay it forward. Open doors for others to come behind. There are more here today than there were before, and let's make sure there are more there tomorrow.
Okay. Sounds good to me. I want to thank you for your comments. Before I turn it over to Iris, what was that you said was trying Q&A? 5 minutes of Q&A. Okay. Who's going to be the second one to ask questions? You notice I didn't say the first, since I've been the first one to ask questions. Okay. All right. We have someone here.
Thank you. Okay. I'm Sheila Malone, Jackson State University. And my question is, well, first of all, I would dub myself one of those serial entrepreneurs. But I've always operated in my comfort zone. I sell and trade amongst my friends and people I know who know my work. I'm ready to get uncomfortable. I'm ready to broaden and sell outside of my comfort zone. So is it necessary to protect my intellectual property? Is that something I can do on my own, or do you advise getting legal assistance to do that?
It's a great question. So I would tell you that yes, it never hurts to have, if you can do it reasonably, it never hurts to have legal advice on these issues. Sometimes there can be complex things. So there are a lot of legal resources out there. So please avail yourself of that. That said, one of the great things that the USPTO has is there are what are called pro se filers, right? And so there are people who, pro se just means you're filing on your own behalf. And so there are ways for folks to come in, and we provide our examiners provide advice for folks, our attorneys, I should say, provide advice for folks as part of the pro se program to help with the filing process. Patents is a fairly complex area, so that's one where you really want to think about it. Think about more of having an attorney or having an advisor. On the trademark side and the copyright side, there are more people that file on their own behalf and go through the process. So that's more doable. But again, if you can get yourself and find yourself an attorney that wants to grow with you, that's the key.
Thank you.
Okay, next question. There's a question over there.
Good day. My name is Kamsio Chukwurinze. I'm a junior computer science major at the HBCU that's been alive since 1875, Alabama A&M University. I have two questions. The first one is concerning intellectual property when it comes to software. So I know for product, it's easy to see the difference. You know what works for one, and you can differentiate what it is. But when it comes to software, a lot of the resources are usually open source resources available to everyone. So how can you have a patent on something like that? And then the second one is concerning Web3. We're all going into a space where people would decide to have virtual real estate, virtual products. What is the patent office doing around cases like that?
Okay, good questions. I may have to make a motion for an extension of time with the court. No, I won't keep. So I'm going to answer the 4 minutes. Gotcha. Okay. I'm going to answer the second question first, and that is that we are actually in the process. We are constantly looking at new technology and new different things and how they may come through the office in terms of the invention process. So AI, we have an AI working group that is looking at the virtual space. And we're also looking within the virtual space beyond AI, also at virtual reality. These are things because we're going to get the questions are going to start coming fast and furious for inventions off of that. Remember that for a patent protection, and this is going to lead to my next answer to your first question. That patent protection requires that it has to be novel, non-obvious, but it also has to transform from an abstract idea, right, into sort of a reality. So with your first question about the sort of source code and different computing code, there's always protection for that under the copyright laws, okay, for the code and different things. Where the code starts to transform into, beyond just the idea, where it transforms into actions and activities, that's where the patents get involved, and that's where you start to move into an area of patentable. So that's where we're headed. And in terms of the open source stuff, look, it's like anything else. If it's open source, that's fine. What are you doing new? What is new? What is novel? What is not obvious? Right? No problem.
Okay, I think this will be the last question.
Any other questions?
Wherever it comes from, it will be the last one.
It's coming. It's coming. It's coming. It's coming.
Good day, everyone. My name is Olashibumi Olako. I'm a junior computer science at the ever illustrious Alabama A&M University, and my colleague has stated all, so I won't do too much. So my question is, historically, the whole U.S. patent system is quite racist, which kind of like every sort of U.S. system, which is normal. And I'm just kind of curious though, patents are expensive to get through, the legal contingencies, getting lawyers and whatnot. What are you guys doing to kind of help more black engineers, black innovators to, get their patents out there and not sort of get rigged by their other counterpart, which we've seen historically, because a lot of black people have invented a lot of things we're using day to day, but the white counterpart kind of take credit for that. And I'm just kind of curious what you guys are doing to change that. So,
and I want to make sure I understand your question. So you're asking what are basically cost-effective ways of patenting, particularly for folks who may not have the super means to go out and prosecute, pay $100,000 to prosecute a patent, right? And then your second question is sort of the value. You're asking about the value proposition on the back end of the patent. What makes it worth it for you to get it? Are those the two questions?
Not quite.
Or you understand the value proposition? You're more interested in the first.
Yeah, I'm more interested in the first.
Okay, I got you. I got you. And by the way, I'll have to double check afterwards, but I believe that my cousin, the daughter of my first cousin, actually attends Alabama A&M. I believe she's there for veterinary school, if I remember correctly.
What's her name? I'm sorry.
Patricia Bradley.
I'll check out.
Yeah. Okay. So let's ask. So let's answer that question. And so the answer is the Patent and Trademark Office actually has a few different programs. And I mentioned one, which is Pro Se, which you can sort of file on your own. We have attorneys that will help guide you through the process. There's still filing fees that you will have to go through, but it is a way that you can take on the burden of time yourself rather than paying for another's time. There's a second thing that we have. It's called a first-time filers program, and what we're trying to do there is that we're actually expediting the examination. So if we use a first-time filer program where we can cut down on the amount of time, then it's going to cost you less money. Okay, so that's the second thing. Third thing is that we have set up some pro bono law school clinics, and I've been heavily involved, I've been involved in my first few weeks. And these pro bono law school clinics, what they do is that you basically have law students together with supervising attorneys and adjuncts from the law community, and what they will do is they will actually help you to prosecute your patent, and they do it pro bono, so that means for free. So that's a way to do it, and that's the ways that we're helping to cut costs.
Okay.
This awesome fireside chat. We're just really privileged and honored to have both of you to join us today and take time out of your busy schedules. Let's give them a round of applause. Okay, so we will transition now. We're going to take 10 minutes to complete the survey, which we have shared and reiterated, completing these surveys and helping us to get data to share with the National Science Foundation to show how we are showing impact and results. So please take about the next 10 minutes to complete the survey. You should have 2 copies of a QR code on your table, so please scan that QR code to access the survey, and we are going to take the next 10 minutes to complete this survey. Thank you so much, and thank you again.
And thank you for the opportunity to come, and I have a new best friend.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Funnel him this way. I'll let him know if you have a very specific question about him. Excuse me.
Did you like it?
I loved it. You know I loved it. So thank you. I saw your message, but I've been your email about the live stream. Thank you. I loved it. But it worked. It was fun, and you were good. The teams were good.
They were. I was so glad because it was like my son was throwing everything up this morning. I was like, okay, there's no way they're going to make it. And it was really good to be able to tune in and to see them.
Iris is going to try and get them to move the podium so that we have more space for the pictures. Do you think that's not going to happen? Okay. Okay. So then we're good with that one space. Yeah.
To the side so we can take pictures.
He doesn't think they're going to. Get me. No. Get me with me. Position me. You got my background. Okay. Just making sure. Okay. I need a new. Since they're coming up here, I would say let's just do it while they're up here. Take it.
Okay. And then
Yeah. We'll take a full group at the very end. Yes. Yeah. Good. Yep. Okay. Yep. 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 And we can shift this to back there and then. Snap it down. All right, Washington, Pennsylvania. Are you from Washington?
So here's the funny thing. I'm from an even smaller town outside of Washington.
okay, that's gotta be close to her home.
Wow. Perfect. Because I don't need it for what we're doing.
I was just explaining Washington, PA is like a major town compared to a little town.
Oh.
So
Yes.
like my
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, they want the stage cleared.
Yeah.
that's what he was like. There's someone else from
Yeah.
Washington.
That's the whole role on the text.
I know y'all didn't do that just for me to meet with him, but what a great opportunity for students to see, right?
Here, let me grab it.
Yeah, grab that.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and to be able to see like
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
It is.
almost as
she wanted to know how you took your mechanical engineering degree and turned that into a career. She's with Bowie State University, so I'm gonna ask her to come up.
Would you ask her? You're gonna ask her to come up now?
Yep. Is that okay? Yep. Oh, Deputy Director. I know you said. Yeah. Okay. So we don't need. Okay. Okay. We just have them. So because I was when we get to the thank you, I just have them say. Yeah. Okay. Well, we get to that. Yeah. Okay. All right. So have they had this time? Oh, they've had this time. All right, we're going to take one more minute to complete the surveys. Thank you all so much. We are about to get into what we all have been waiting for, which is announcing our first, second, and third place winners of the pitch competition. So take another 45 seconds to complete that, and we'll get started. Have to keep these hidden. Have to keep my the winners. Oh. All right, are we ready? Is everyone ready? Are we ready? Do you want to know the winners? So I just want to, first of all, once again, thank you all. You all did a fantastic job. This year, was probably the most impressive group that we've had of pitches. So congratulate yourselves. You all did a phenomenal job. We literally had deliberation because the scores were extremely, 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 extremely close. Extremely close. So obviously consider yourselves, every single one of you, a winner. This has been the closest that we've had in terms of the numerical scores for our teams for the duration of when we've had the showcase. So once again, congratulations. And now I would like to introduce, before I do that, when you see your video, I would like for you to come up because that means you've placed. You're gonna stand to my right. You're gonna have your photo taken, and then I'm gonna ask you to kind of step to the side so that we can take a full picture at the end. So I'd now like to announce the third place winning team.
Hey, Christina.
Congratulations, Jackson State University. Woo!
I wanted to include something with fresh produce, but the closest store to me is 30 miles away. Do you know how I can find a store closer to me with fresh produce?
You know what? Sheila, Jewel, and Brianna told me about an app that was recently created to help the residents of Wilkinson County, Mississippi, locate local farmers and the produce that they have available. Let me reach out to them.
Okay, thank you. Could you include us in a group chat, please? I have never heard of this app before and would like to know more about it. It sounds like this app will save me travel time if I can visit a local farmer in the area.
Sure, let me create a group chat with all of us. Hey everybody, Alexis asked me about the app that you all were recently telling me about that helps residents in rural areas find fresh produce.
Hey Christina. Yes, Veggie Source. I love that app. The thing I like about it most are the benefits. It provides fresher produce for consumers. You can order right online. Local growers and farmers can even go onto the platform and sign up for free to advertise the produce that they're selling. Veggie Source is great.
Oh, they talking about the app. The app aims to reduce inequalities, paying attention to the needs of the disadvantaged and marginalized populations of Wilkinson County, Mississippi. Both African American men and women between ages.
Congratulations, congratulations. Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, don't sit. Just stay close. Congratulations. All right. I'm so proud of Jackson State. They've participated. Dr. Mitra has participated since the inaugural showcase. And so for them to place this year has been phenomenal. So kudos to Dr. Mitra. He is. And I've emailed Dr. Mitra, but we are thinking of you. We understand the crisis that's going on in Jackson with the water. So please know that we are all thinking of you and wishing you all well. So now we're going to move on to second place. Our second place winners. Who is that? Belander Smith, Eco Home. Congratulations.
EcoHome is our solution to the sustainability issue within American households. It's a hybrid of hardware, which are ROT sensors, and software, which is a mobile application.
EcoHome makes it easier for you to manage waste. You're able to track the volume of your trash and also schedule pickup. This makes it easier to manage waste in the home and in the community.
The water control section of our app allows you to track water consumption throughout the home and at various parts of the day. Additionally, our temperature control system allows you to set hot water temperatures to various appliances so you get hot water when you need it, saving both energy and water.
With EcoHome, you can track carbon emission in your home. You can track energy consumed weekly or energy consumed over time. You can track energy in individual spaces of the home, such as the living room, the guest room, and the kitchen.
And so, we believe EcoHome will be able to greatly reduce the issue of unsustainability within the American household. We trust that our system will make it easier to manage important aspects of the home.
So I just have to acknowledge Dr. Anwar and obviously the Philander Smith team, both teams. But Dr. Anwar has been participating. I came on board with working on the showcase, even though it started in 2018, but I came on board in 2020. And Dr. Anwar has been a part of that group. Philander Smith has placed the last 3 years that I've been involved in it. And so congratulations to you, Dr. Anwar. You're doing a phenomenal job down there. And Dr. Zhang, thank you so much. All right. And now for our first place team for the 2022 AAAS HBCU Making and Innovation Showcase. Let's see who it is.
My name is
A&T, Aggie Pride. 2 years in a row, A&T has taken first place. Congratulations to North Carolina A&T University and the ProGel team.
Over the past decade, nutritional recommendations for fats have changed. As a result, food manufacturers have revised their product recipes to remove hydrogenated oils and reduce saturated fats. This process is difficult because fats are responsible for what we as consumers love. For example, the texture of cake and the mouthfeel of chocolate and ice cream. Oil gels are a three-dimensional network created through a process called oilgelation, which traps liquid oil. Liquid oil, such as soybean and safflower oil, are healthier options compared to other animal fats and solid oil systems. Oil gels can convert the oil into a gel-like material without changing the characteristics of the oil. Research from the past decade has shown that oil gels can be used as saturated fat substitutes. Probiotics have been shown to have several health benefits, such as heart health, digestion, and improved immunity. However, probiotics are very sensitive to various elements such as processing, storage, temperature, and pH. As a result, the food industry needs improved systems to protect and stabilize the probiotics in foods to improve their functionality and viability for consumers' health. With the increased need for fat alternatives and stabilized probiotic delivery systems, we are helping to solve this problem. ProGel is not only cost-effective, but easily produced and utilized by food manufacturers, and will increase both probiotic functionality and availability for consumers.
So I just want to congratulate all the teams. Again, this was the closest. Literally, we are talking super, super, super close. As we're organizing everyone, we're going to ask Tariq Tidwell from VentureWell just to speak to the teams. Really, let's get the teams by himself. He's going to make a few remarks, and then we'll come in. Yeah.
Start now?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, you're just doing the team, so you can just speak.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right.
Okay, hold on. We're going to edit it.
Yeah. Oh. Okay, quickly. All right. Well, we're extremely proud of all the teams, all of you who placed and all of you who showed up. Definitely, excited about what you have done, and this is not the end. This is just the beginning, and then also inviting you all to participate in our accelerator, in our program that gives up to $5,000 initially for helping you to further your idea, and up to $20,000 to move it forward, and then down the road up to $50,000 for investments if you decide to pursue what you have presented today. So that is actually within the next 2 weeks. Our applications are currently open for you to be able to receive $25,000 additionally to move your ideas forward. So we're also going to be allocating one product management program to each different team that won today, and figuring out a way to also engage with the other teams with helping you refine some of your different ideas. So we're excited for all of you. Congratulations on all the teams that placed. Looking forward to seeing your applications and inventions down the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Tariq. And so we'll be sending more information on that as soon as the conference is over. I am going to pass it on to Iris, but again, I just want to say being able to have worked with each of these teams so very closely and to know where they started and what we saw today, my voice is going to choke up because you guys did phenomenal. And I'm just so very, very proud of every single team here, so thank you. But thank y'all. I'm very, very proud of y'all, so good job. Thank you.
Stop it. From what we saw in February, like this is almost a 9-month process. Yes, this is amazing. So I'm not gonna cry. So let me get through my announcements, I guess, quickly. So again, this concludes our 2022 HBCU Making an Innovation Showcase. I have a few announcements. I always like to acknowledge our full team. So our immediate project team, Allison Gonzalez, please stand up. If you're in the room, she's probably working on our next event, which is next week. Claire Malloy, who started at the end of August and is getting some on-the-job training. Janice Lim, Kavita Mitapelli, Nina De La Salas, and Debbie Igumbor, please stand up. Please stand up. I'd also like to acknowledge AAAS leadership, our CEO, Sudip Parikh, who hates that he couldn't make this. This showcase is very near and dear to his heart. Of course, the amazing, incomparable Shirley Malcolm, Julia McKenzie, who is our programs leader, and then Travis York, who is our IC director. Also like to thank our support staff, which they're probably outside from our meetings office, Cassandra Jones, Kathy Arias, Mike Colella, who is our photographer, always our amazing photographer, and Dmitry Panfilov, who was the videographer that worked with us this time. Also want to acknowledge the entire Hyatt team, so hope this captures everyone: Katie, Jennifer, Minyael, Tyrone, Kurt, Andrew, Randy, Derek, Erwan, Milton, Prince, and Robert. I think this captures all of these guys as well, banquet staff, all of our liaisons. Let's give them a hand, all of our servers, our banquet staff, everybody. And so, again, we keep reiterating that we share a lot of opportunities, resources, and information on our social media. So if you have not been following us on LinkedIn and Twitter, you have missed out on a lot of opportunities. That's why we're always saying you should be following us on social media. Dorothy has been sharing $50,000 prize opportunities all year long that you missed out on if you were not following us on LinkedIn and Twitter. So please follow us on LinkedIn and Twitter. And then, so I have a closing charge. So do you all remember the charge I gave you Thursday night? Does anybody remember? I have a prize if you do. What was the charge that I gave you at the beginning of this conference? And it's something I said I hope that you do over the next 2.5 days. Network, take advantage of this opportunity. So raise your hand if you've been doing that. Did anybody rise to the challenge? Okay, a few. Okay, so I have a closing charge. So the title of this grant that funds this actual showcase is Advancing HBCU Innovation Capacity Through or Via a Community of Practice. So you all are the community of practice, all the people that you've met, our amazing advisory board, all of our speakers, us. So we need you to help us operationalize what a community of practice is. So I challenge you to take the knowledge, the information, the resources that you've acquired back to your institutions. If you don't do this, we won't be able to build capacity. So take all of this back to your institutions. You all are unofficial ambassadors for your institutions. Take the knowledge, take the relationships, take the information back to your institutions to help us build capacity in this community of practice. So thank you all. We are adjourned.